All right, and sorry about that, folks. We are live again. Sorry, I know I just pressed that as someone entered the room, but we lost connection earlier due to someone blue screening. So this is part two of Darkness in Dublin Mage Venue, a brief chat at Stephanos' Forge. We left off with his apprentice, Sadia, getting minor first aid in the sense of, oh, here's a Band-Aid. Here's a little antibiotic. Here's some ice. Suck it up. Not that he'd say it like that, but you know.
Right. She just kind of nods to Rupert. So sorry about.
There's nothing to be sorry for. We all have bad dreams sometimes.
Yes, and when we have the ability to affect reality, well, sometimes that happens. In time, you will likely be able to control that with much more efficiency. It is not something that happens overnight. No pun intended. At least the way it was explained to me.
Sorry for interrupting your conversation.
It's quite all right. We were almost done with it. Tell you what, why don't... Thinks for a moment. Like, he doesn't want to just be dismissive of her, but he's like, Plus, I know you got to go in, like, a couple minutes. We will have to discuss more about your quote-unquote curriculum later. I wouldn't worry about it too much. You are in luck because I am myself still learning the most basic information about the Order and their ways, so I'm in no position to start quizzing you on things like that. Nor am I qualified to teach you any of our secrets or anything else, even if you were in a position to learn all of that. My focus is going to be to help you control what you're doing and avoid any instance like what just happened. It may take some time, but that is it. If you decide afterwards you would like to learn more, then that's something entirely different.
She'll just nod.
What subject do you enjoy in school?
She looks at you like as if that's a stupid question, and then she says, I never liked school.
She does not like school. And I think her only teacher that she likes is D'Onofrio. To be fair, D'Onofrio is not your standard teacher.
No, she's not.
Slightly curious. We've been very cautious thus far, but you did not ever mention to D'Onofrio or myself. I do not wish to be indelicate, but are your parents still alive? Do they live in the city?
No, they don't really matter anymore.
Was that something you thought before you had your encounter, or is that a new decision?
I guess both.
So, all right, let me rephrase. I'm mostly trying to figure out if they're going to be posting your picture on milk cartons.
She says, nah, my uncle wouldn't really care. He's probably happy now.
No, but your school will notice you're missing. Social services will make some attempts to find you.
Possibly. The bureaucracy, I believe, can take some time.
It's summer break.
It
I won't care till next year.
You're right. But when you don't turn up for school in September, if you don't turn up, then things may happen very quickly. Obviously, I have come across cases of missing children in my line of work.
Don't worry, he's not police or anything. And if he was, he's also of the Order, so he would not do anything. But I'll probably have to look into it at some point just to make absolutely sure. I won't approach your uncle or anything. It would be complicated if we did, but we'll likely just need to make sure that he's not actively trying to put your name out to various Dublin police. It would be very inconvenient if you were to be wandering the city at some point. Not that you would be wandering unattended or anything in the near future, but it would be nice at some point if you were able to leave the house, like walk to the corner store or something, and not have to worry about being picked up by the police.
Okay.
So we'll look into that at some point.
I would like to
You
hope that
wouldn't care, but
well,
if you
okay,
wanna-
but aside from your uncle, I would like to hope you can return to school in September and try to have a normal childhood. And besides, you need to learn your letters.
I mean, I can teach her Greek.
Well,
I
being
don't want to go
fluent
back.
in English
I don't
is
want to go back to
good
school.
in this country.
She says, I don't want to go back to school.
Well, millions of children do not want to go back to school in September, but unfortunately, it is for their own good.
We will have to cross that bridge when we come to it. The good news is I do believe you would at least, if all goes well, by that time you should at least have a basic control over your abilities. So you would have the option to, if nothing else. That would be a good goal, because that if you have the ability to go to school, that means you're also capable of walking around without having to wear a he kind of indicates the ring, like, basically the implication being you'll be able to handle it yourself. You'll be more self-sufficient at that point.
Okay.
So, but that
I'm not going back. He's
Stephanos.
looking at Rupert like, I'm not going back to
Sorry,
school.
in case it's relevant, Stephanos, you probably don't know because I'm not saying not from around here. The Irish Constitution does give the right to homeschooling if you decide to go down that route. So legally, there won't be a problem there. You are meant to register as the child's in homeschooling. That's the only legal requirement.
I'm sure something could be arranged.
I would not recommend that. I think it would be good to be around people your own age.
No, it's not. They're horrible.
Yes, children can be horrible, but not all.
Rupert, we can worry about that later. It's months away. We have time.
If you guys have your mind up,
I don't.
you can tell us
I
schools
have a mind
bring
shield.
Well, you have spirit sight, so that's good enough. You can very much tell, Stephanos, the more schools being mentioned, the angrier she's getting.
Which is why he is like dropping the topic. Like, hey, let's worry about other things.
So what do you enjoy? Do you like to draw? Do you like to play with dolls? You tell me.
Melting teacups, disintegrating tables.
Well, that's, I guess, when I can control it, that could be fun. But I guess I like exploring places. And I don't know. I don't really know what I like. Just kind of play with my friends. And
a wise man once said that we should try to find out what we enjoy in life and then try to do it.
Yes, she does have roughly 10 years before most people would expect to even have a grasp of it, and roughly 20 years before most people do get a grasp on it.
Well, some never do, but
Exactly.
But then, I like to think, does someone say children have the best grasp of it?
And unlike most children, she has the ability to actually act on that.
Yes. Well, perhaps that's something you should think about. Simply find something you enjoy doing, whether that's crafts like Stephanos here, working in his forge, whether that's reading and telling stories, whether that's playing with toys. Just find what you enjoy.
You could even be, though you do not have the obvious talents for it that I can see, you could always learn. There's always also the option of, well, let me put it this way. Many children say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a such and such. Normally, that would require decades of training and work and so on and so forth, and it still should in many cases. But in your unique situation, you might actually be able to contribute in a meaningful way with your abilities, though it would have to be subtle and likely affecting people like us. For example, instead of being a doctor, you actually could learn the ability to heal. And it would be very useful for some people. I'm not saying go become a healer. I'm saying you have options. Things which would normally be far outside your reach right now.
I guess I want to learn real knowledge.
Well, you're in the right place for that.
You talked about
Sort of.
Sorry, you talked about disintegrating tables. Would that
Yeah,
be
I did that by accident.
Well, that might imply a talent with what we call the entropy sphere.
Actually, from the brief work that I've done with her, what do they call the level 3 sphere? Journeyman?
It's disciple.
Yeah.
Okay, and level 1 is novice.
Apprentice.
Okay, level 1 is apprentice, level 2 is novice, level 3 is...
2 is initiate.
Okay.
4 is adept, and 5 is master.
Apprentice, initiate, disciple. Okay, so he's going to say, from what I can tell, she has disciple level abilities in forces, which was of some concern with Denofrier. That's why she has that item to help keep her more destructive tendencies in check for now until she learns to control it, which I'm sure she will. She has, I believe, initiate. Is it initiate? God damn it! Level 2. Level 2 is.
Let me check 1 second.
Yes.
Insert level 2 title here.
It's initiate, I believe.
Initiate skill with spirits and a very slight apprentice level skill with the mind sphere.
Hmm.
And that's just for now. If she were trained, she could learn much more, I'm sure. But that's interesting.
The powers of a disciple at
yes,
young age is remarkable.
She is. Yes, for if it makes you feel any better, Sadia, from what I have been told, you have about as much skill with the, or at least raw potential, I should say, not skill. You have the same raw potential with the forces, which is, fire, light, that sort of thing, heat, everything else. You have the same level of skill as someone who might have been with the Order for 10 years. That is not to say that you are... You don't know how to use it yet, but you have the same level of knowledge, same level of raw power.
She just kind of looks at you and just, I guess that's...
It's a good thing for you, but it could also be very dangerous, which is why you're learning to control it.
Well, it means you are a very talented, gifted young person. Just as Mozart was composing music at a very young age, you have a talent to, compose fire and light and shadow.
And make things explode.
You just and also to stop things exploding.
Yes, I do that also frequently now. He doesn't seem so much annoyed. He's just saying it.
She'll just kind of look tired and just say, "Oh, I guess that's cool." Seems to be actually thinking quite a bit, and with your life sight, Stephanos, you can kind of tell that there's a lot of different electrochemical reactions going on in her brain. She just says, "Do you have like a notebook or something? I want to write down my thoughts."
Yeah, I can get you a small journal.
There are a lot in my head right now.
Oh,
Yes.
that sounds like a very good idea.
He'll go. He probably has like a desk drawer somewhere, and he'll just grab a notebook and some pens.
So yeah, she'll actually go off to the corner where she can sit, and she'll just start writing things down. And I'm gonna have to go, guys. So
No worries.
Sorry about the little interruption there, but
No worries.
yeah.
Thank you.
We'll do more training stuff later.
And you guys can always do more stuff with Sadia if you want. Just let me know.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Later. All right. So once she's safely deposited, writing things down.
As you were saying, so the Archbishop had just survived the hellfire.
Yes, which was a surprise to Yuki. Not that he survived, but that there was hellfire at all. Then a figure entered the room. The figure was he appeared human in the same way that Faust appeared human. But his aura, Faust has a powerful aura. He's a demon. This person's power was roughly equal in intensity to the Archangel.
Okay.
It was at least closer to that level. I wouldn't say it was equal, but it was far closer to that level. I could not tell you which was stronger, just that it was in that ballpark.
Okay.
I have never encountered entities that powerful. It identified itself as Lucy. And yes, what you're thinking is accurate.
Right. Holds his head in despair. Or disbelief. Right. So you're claiming that a being who appeared to and presented itself and identified itself as the Morning Star appeared.
The item that provoked the reaction, and I would reiterate, it caused one of the most powerful magi in the city, who is a holy man like yourself, to burst into hellfire.
Indeed.
That is not an easy thing to do.
An Archmagus, I hear.
Yes. And the item, by the way, was a tarot card of the Devil Arcana, which had a single star upon it. It was apparently a calling card left when Yuki had an encounter with this entity before. And I do not know who else was present, but apparently some others were present for this encounter. She had apparently chosen to pocket the calling card as it was left behind because she thought it would be dangerous to leave it unattended, and it might be useful.
Right.
Lucifer, again, I did not speak to it because I don't need to explain why I would not speak to it. It wanted to help. It didn't want a deal. It wanted to give us knowledge and information. I'm like, oh, I've heard that before.
Yes.
And it required a unanimous vote to do so, which I thought very strange. Well, but
so effectively, it was trying to make a deal. It was asking for a symbolic gesture of.
You could say that, yes, or at least consent. Yes, it could be phrased as a deal in that case. In any case. The individuals present were myself, a woman who is apparently named Samira of the Euthanatoi, Yuki, who is also of the Euthanatoi, obviously, Miss Morgan, Daniela was present. Oh, also, there was a man who was present at both of these encounters. He is of the Virtual Adepts. His name is Glasspaw.
Lots of people I don't know, but okay.
He is also new to the city. He was apparently here to meet with Winrate, but Winrate has now passed on, or was captured by the Union, one or the other. So, the new head virtual adept in the city is Jinx, for the record. I do not know if there was an announcement, but
yes, I was. I know. I was nearby when Winrate sacrificed himself. It seems.
In any case, so interestingly enough, when it made it clear what it was and what it wanted, and requested the symbolic, as you said, symbolic gesture of acceptance, oh, see, I'm trying to remember if I think Torna was still playing Sketch at that point. Yeah, I don't think he brought in Kali yet. I think he was playing Sketch. So I'm going to go with that. If it turns out I'm wrong, then insert that it was Kali who did this, but I'm like 99% sure it was Sketch. Okay? So, both Samira and Sketch seem to think the matter worth considering. Samira had the opinion that, at the very least, we should consider entertaining the notion, and Sketch seemed to have a similar viewpoint. The immediate response to that was Jinx, myself, and Glasspaw. Jinx was present too, by the way. Jinx, Glasspaw, and myself uttering various variations of no, hell no, and hell fucking no. After which point Yuki said yes.
Right. So actually committed infernalism again.
Yes, and with nothing to gain from it whatsoever, since it had by its own words said that it would only grant this knowledge if it had a unanimous vote. So she essentially admitted to it in the open, gaining nothing. And even this entity looked at her and said, I believe the exact quote would be something like, honey, you don't know how to read the room.
Right.
Yes, it's rather depressing when the demon is lecturing you for, yes. In any case, since it did not get a unanimous vote, it left. Plus, two of us were attempting to deconstruct whatever hex it had put upon the archbishop and the rabbi, freezing them. It was extremely powerful, and I think it would have taken us hours to unravel it. But we were still trying, and it left at that point, and the archbishop was released along with the rabbi. And the archbishop clearly realized something had happened, for we were not standing in the exact same positions as we had been. He asked Yuki where she had gotten the card, and she told him. I think he tried to kill her at that point, or he started to do something. It was very powerful, lots of different magic going on, prime and spirit primarily, I believe, and he was charging it up above his head. D'Onofrio did not comment on this, I believe, but whatever it was certainly powerful enough to kill her. But enough people were throwing themselves in the way and saying this was not what the chorus stood for, and I was like, wait a minute,
No.
rather is what the chorus stands for, I thought.
What the ultimate chorus that stands for.
In any case, he desisted. He let the effect expire. And he was broken. He sank down and more or less wordlessly gestured for us to leave, and just the two of them began praying, and we left. Not long after that, the announcement came that he had retired and was departing the city. So, in the space of 24 hours, Yuki admitted to infernalism, consorting with Lucifer, taking his calling card, and her actions directly almost led to the deaths of a father and son pair of Master and Archmagi.
And did someone arrest her at this point?
Oh no, she left, and people were apparently willing to help her escape. For the record, all of this information has already been given to Miss D'Onofrier, or the Magister. She said something about there would be a meeting of the Primi?
Well, there was probably due to be a meeting anyway to resolve the Deirdre situation.
Oh no, that involved only one or two of the Primi.
Yes, well, I briefly met Prima Talus.
That was who she was going to speak to about forming a meeting with the rest of them.
Yes. I'm sure they would have all been taking a keen interest in Dublin, the mention of the word Deirdre. But yes. Well,
I rather think that may have fallen to the back burner unless they believe it to be the source of all of this. But
well, it sounds connected. If the head of their house was Yuki's best friend, by the sound of it.
I do not know, but
But yes,
it does not look good. I will say that much. But I will. I am not skilled.
It sounds like you've done the right thing. You've quietly observed and reported it to higher powers who can hopefully deal with it.
Hopefully, yes.
Well,
the end of the world's a tall order for anyone, though.
Well, yeah, the apocalypse is technically beyond any of us to deal with. Thank you for telling me. I'm not sure at this point what to think or say. I mean, I must question, is there any way that some of these events could have not been as they appeared? Could they have been?
I wish that were the case, but from all I have seen, I always have at least the ability to see spirits, the spirit realm, people's auras, and magical energy. I have those two effects active at all times. But it's very helpful, actually. But it can be a little confusing. Nothing...
Sorry, if it's not a personal question, do you have talent in all of these spheres that your ward appears to have talent?
Yes.
Good. Splendid. Okay.
I actually have some talent in apparently all 9 of the spheres.
Oh, indeed.
Not much talent, apparently. The only one I've actually shown any ability to interact with was matter. But,
okay. Well...
In any case, no, unfortunately, I believe this was too much of it. Too many of the events would be impossible to replicate without so much power that you might as well. Yes.
Okay.
There is no illusion that could have created the potent effect that caused the Archbishop to almost die, nor to almost kill Siren, which apparently was caused by something. D'Onofrier interpreted that to mean that apparently Master Siren has a divine parent of some kind. He is half angelic or similar. And his celestial parent, apparently after the encounter we just had, turned their gaze from the world. Whatever that means. So there are definitely things happening that are not illusions. And the demons, I'm fairly sure, were not fake.
No. But a demon might pretend to be another demon of greater power.
Yes, but falsifying that level of power is difficult. At least from what little I understand.
Hmm.
It might be possible, but I don't believe it to be. It would have been difficult to fool everyone present. And also, again, I do not believe a normal demon, and I do not know by what standard we consider it to be a normal demon, but the power that I sensed from Faust would not, I do not believe, be sufficient to overwhelm the Archbishop, nor to casually freeze him in his sanctum.
No.
That entity may indeed have been what it appeared to be. At the very least, it was a very powerful demon. It may not be the Prince of Darkness, but it could be.
An Archduke.
Does it really matter which one it was at this point? It was a absurdly powerful entity. It was a demon.
Okay.
Which means we have one or possibly two, based on what we have seen in the city. Yeah. We do not know if they're working together. We do not know how many people are working with them. We only know of one Magi who has consorted with them, but we know of another who was aware of it. And
so
the majority opinion appears to be to ignore it.
If we can just get some names straight. So Yuki, who I met on the Leviathan mission, she's openly admitted having done a deal with Faust, as well as these other recent events you've told me about.
No deal was reached with the apparent Lucifer, but
she was
not happy. For lack of trying.
But okay, and you say that so at least her Cabal, her friends were aware she'd done a deal and had done nothing.
I do not know if there's an actual cabal, but at the very least, yes, Lottie, according to Daniela, whose memory is Daniela's memory is not perfect. She has mental issues, but she seemed very certain. When she is certain of something, every time she has been certain of something, I have been able to verify it. So I do not believe that she is that far gone. But she was very sure that Lottie was already aware of this.
So Lottie,
based on her behavior.
I've not met who is a Euthanatos and claiming.
No, she is an ecstatic.
Ecstatic and claiming to be the head of House Deirdre was at least aware of this, we think.
Yes.
Anyone else? Sketch.
I know of no one else who was aware of this beforehand. Well, if they were, I have no knowledge of them being aware of it. Nor did they say anything that indicated they were aware of it.
When I was on the bridge when I saw how Sketch reacted when Yuki was threatened, as in he murdered a prisoner.
Yes.
Obviously, I've reported that.
As did I.
I mean, unfortunately, whilst I regarded that as the most shocking breach of any code war,
he is until and unless Master Siren recovers, he is the one in charge of the ecstatics in this city.
Last I heard, he'd fled the city. I was pushing for him to be put on trial for that act.
Oh, see, I don't know. Was there anything officially said that the character left the city? Because a lot of times when people just switch characters, it's assumed that character is now an NPC in the city.
I was told he's an NPC, but he's an NPC. He fled the city.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
City, perhaps I was pushing to have a put on trial for that on the basis that it clearly endangered all of us present and the mission, so it was an act of betrayal against an effective cabal, which was the best legal way I could find to accuse him of something. Because I can't.
You threw the book at him. I understand, and I appreciate that.
I wanted to do him for a war crime, but it's not like the traditions have actually signed up to like articles of war.
No, and neither have the Union. So
I had to find something. It was something to charge him over that murder with.
Which this brings me to a very different point. I think we can safely say that there are many problems in this city, yes?
Yes.
And individuals like you and I do not have the power to, by ourselves, do much to impact some of these issues, other than, as you say, reporting them, documenting them, and so on and so forth.
Yes. And there are clearly...
That does not mean we shouldn't try, but I'm saying, no offense to you, but even with your faith, I do not believe you would want to go toe-to-toe. Well, maybe you would wish to as a martyr or something, but you do not believe you would succeed toe-to-toe against Lucifer or an archdemon of hell.
There are plenty of magi in this city who I am happy to recognise would best be in one-on-one combat. Never mind higher powers.
Yes, so what I'm thinking is this. Perhaps if we could find a few people who... Because it seems to be that all the sources I have read, and from everything D'Onofrier and yourself have said, in most cases, open admitted infernalism would cause consequences. There would be... As you said, you were expecting the story at several points to derail into them being arrested. And that did not happen, nor did anyone else seem to think that it should happen. Perhaps it is not too paranoid to say that there may be others who, if they are not infernalists, they are open to the idea of it.
Yes.
In which case, perhaps it might be wise if we could gather a few like-minded individuals, in the sense that, when I say like-minded, I mean we can agree that infernalism is a very bad idea.
I would hope that every tradition mage thinks that. It seems
in this city that does not appear to be the case, however.
Certainly. And, well, I mean, the traditions were founded to bring together mages of different traditions in mixed cabals to work together to learn to better themselves, to better the world, to fight the Essential War. It seems that whether they're formal cabal or not, Yuki and her friends are effectively operating as a cabal. And it seems that there are not currently other active cabals on the ground in this city.
Not that I am aware of as such, no. Before I get too far ahead of myself, there is one more tale to tell, and I already submitted the report on that one. It regards my apprentice, actually, and why she is my apprentice in the first place. So, you may have heard from this story so far that Mr. Collins and Miss Morgan were instrumental in healing Master Siren, and Miss Morgan was instrumental in healing the Archbishop, meaning the city owes them a great debt.
Yes. Or at least gratitude, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, the Archbishop said that he owed them a great debt, at the very least, for saving his son, but that is a personal debt.
Yes.
Now, we were present at a different location, a bar, which is known as the Tag. It's in one of the commercial districts. It's warded in some ways. If you see it, you'll know it. The owner is a blind man by the name of Mads. Yeah. He, when I arrived there were several other magi there, including Mr. Collins, Miss Morgan, and a third individual who seemed to be with them, a woman by the name of Kali. The three of them appeared acquainted and were They seem to be acquainted and were working together, perhaps.
Kali, as in the that Hindu goddess.
The same pronunciation. I do not know if that's how it's spelled. All right, so
Oh, so Morgan, Kali, and who's the
Mr.
third?
Collins,
Mr.
the
Collins.
voodoo.
Voodoo.
Yes. The three of them were present, along with a virtual adept named Benny. I believe Eric was there. He has no affiliation at present, and but he was present on the Leviathan mission, if you recall.
Hmm.
He lost his clothing.
Oh, yes.
And also, he's actually of like mind to us that all of these issues with demons and such.
Mm.
If the newest mages look at this situation and find it weird, I can only imagine what the more experienced ones are saying behind closed doors. But in any case, I believe those were. Oh, also, Glasspaw was present. So as we were there, shortly after my arrival, there was a altercation on the street. Several children ran by, one of which was Sadia, and the other two were young boys, similar age. They were torturing a cat. And by torturing, I mean they were going to kill it. They were beating it, throwing it around. She was swinging it around by the tail. So they were being hooligans. The three that I mentioned, Collins, Morgan, and Kali, immediately got up and walked outside. The rest of us followed, mostly to find out what was going on. The children noticed, as they should, 7 or so adults immediately exiting the building and approaching them, and prepared to flee. Because, children are smart enough to know that if adults show up, they can't have their fun anymore. I thought initially that all we were going to do was simply, walk over, and that would be enough for them to stop what they were doing. But apparently others had other ideas. First, Mr. Collins did something strange. He did not cast any effect. For as I say, I would have noticed, he points to his eyes, if he had actually cast an effect. But there is something strange about his pattern. His shadow is most unnatural. It moves in a way that is obviously not normal, and I'm sure he is aware of this.
Like a paradox flaw.
I suppose so, yes. It is very obviously not normal. Anyone who watches it would know this.
Okay.
Of course, if you were just walking down the street, you might not have the occasion to notice it, but he positioned himself in such a way that his shadow would be plainly evident, and drew attention to himself and it, and attempted to terrify the children with it. And then, while that was already causing them to gibber in terror, he began to chant as if he were casting a hex upon them. Again, he did not actually cast any magic, but they would not have known that.
Okay.
It was very authentic.
So he decided to terrify some small children.
Yes, and while he was focusing upon the two boys, the girl, Sadia, had the cat. Kali approached her, and Morgan snuck up behind her and grabbed her by the shoulders. They did not physically hurt her, but she had witnessed what was going on with Mr. Collins. She was just as terrified from that. But before she could flee, Miss Morgan was there, and I think Miss Morgan's only priority in all of this was to get a hold of the cat. Once she had the cat, her interest in the entire affair was done, and she began walking back inside. Miss Kali was speaking with the girl for a few moments, and then stepped away. I have no idea what was said. All I can tell you is they did not physically harm her, and they did not cast any spell upon her. But afterwards, they stepped away, and the two boys had fled already. They fled. The girl seemed in shock, which is reasonable under the circumstances. We all began filtering back inside, and Glasspaw alerted us, as he was the last to enter, that something was going wrong. She awoke. The fallout from this apparently caused the deaths of several mortals, several sleepers. It was not so much that she went on a rampage, so much as the raw power of her awakening, with as much energy as it unleashed, damaged some of the buildings, caused some debris, and possibly a few traffic accidents, and that caused the death toll.
So they abused a child sufficiently to force an awakening, and they killed 10 other people in the process.
And banished. The girl herself did not seem to be herself when she awoke. It was as if a higher power was speaking through her, and it said to Collins that he had sundered the soul of a child and banished him into some sort of nether realm. A hole literally opened up at his feet, and he fell through.
Sorry, who fell through?
Mr. Collins, the Voodoo, who had been chanting and using his shadow and such.
Well, okay, well,
which at least indicates that to me indicates that he was chiefly responsible for what happened to the girl, even if it was unintended on his part. It was his responsibility.
Non-magical child abuse is still child abuse.
I'm aware.
I'd rather hope Ireland had enough of that.
And the thing is, I cannot say for sure what effect, if any, the words from the other two had upon the girl. The awakening may have already begun by then. But in any case, Mads, the man who runs the bar, came out and calmed her down by some judicious use of the Mind Sphere, I believe. Brought her inside, helped her recover, while the rest of us filtered back inside, and everyone except myself began arguing very loudly about who was at fault. Oh, I may have neglected to mention one thing. Before the awakening occurred, you remember I was very clear that no one cast any magic upon the children.
Yes.
Someone tried to.
Who did what exactly?
The virtual adept known as Benny attempted something. It was a minor working with the entropy sphere. Myself and Eric, because Eric apparently also has some skill with this, both noticed this and immediately attempted to counteract whatever he was doing. We must have been successful because no effect materialized. I would have sensed it. But he did attempt to target one of the boys with some minor effect. When we discussed the matter with him later, he was very evasive. First, he tried to lie about it, and when we impressed upon him the severity of what he had done, he admitted that he was angry at their abuse of the cat and had decided to place a minor bad luck charm upon them, which would cause one of them to trip. But it was unsuccessful, as I said. He is guilty of the attempt to do so. He did not succeed in his attempt, which is perhaps a loophole. But I believe we made it very clear to him that if this were to ever happen again, there are laws against such things in both the normal world and this one.
Yes, well, as I said, the Irish courts are very alert to ritual child abuse cases.
He was at least being discreet with what he did. Again, not excusing him, but what he did was at least discreet and not obviously magic. Had the child actually fallen, it would have seemed to be simple coincidence.
Yes, I think he...
As opposed to chanting and using your shadow.
I think he'd get off on a use of quiet magic defense. And And
Yes, though the malicious nature of it is a different matter, and that concerns me, but I believe he was simply angry and showed extremely poor judgment.
Yes, I mean,
He did not intend to kill or corrupt the child or cause an awakening.
No.
Nothing that he did would have caused that.
I mean, no. I mean, if people really wanted to, a case could be brought. He'd probably get off, but frankly, having to go to a court to explain what he was doing, even if he's not committed a crime, it would be very embarrassing for him. But
Yes.
given an awakening actually happened, a forced awakening happened,
That would be the focus, I believe, yes.
I could not worry about the trivial side of thing. That
I simply wanted it to be mentioned so that
Thank
it could not be said later that I had covered it up or
Thank you.
anything.
So Mr. Collins
Fell through a giant black hole at his feet, and this hole then immediately sealed up. I have not seen him since, so I don't know what the result of this was. I don't believe she has any idea of what she did either. I don't believe she is fully aware of what happened.
No, I'm at a loss as to that myself. Well, I suppose again, there's definitely a case there if he reappears.
The discussion, the opinion of the other two, Miss Morgan and Miss Colley, seemed to be that he had done nothing wrong, nor had they, because no magic was cast. And that was the beginning, middle, and end of it.
I'm pretty sure that's not a valid defense.
I agree, and so did Glasspaw, who very vocally protested this and began chewing them out. However, in the end, I believe things were becoming too loud for they were still in the bar, and the girl and the owner, Mads, were not too far away in the back of the bar, and he was attempting to keep her calm. And it's rather hard to do that when a half dozen mages are shouting back and forth, not 15 feet away. Especially when two of them might be considered to be your tormentors, though I did not hear what words were said. For all I know, they were reassuring her that no harm would come to her. I can't vouch for that. But in any case, he did some sort of effect to mute our voices. That got the message across very clear that we should not be arguing in front of the child or in his place of business. And people began to disperse right about the same time as the black vans started to appear. But they did not catch anyone. We were able to disperse in time. Nor were they aware of the bar. As I said, it was well warded. Which, now that story is complete,
Thank you. Well, so they just abandoned this child then.
The child was in the care of a seemingly very capable mage who had the ability to keep her stable. But not long afterwards, I had planned on returning to check up on her at my earliest convenience, likely the following day, when Mads posted a message on the bulletin board in Agrabah Nights stating that he did not have the facility or capacity to care for her in the long term and asked for anyone else to step forward. I consulted with our mater and was assured that the order does indeed take in people with unusual origins, and as in this case, and put my name in the hat with her assistance. And ultimately, she chose to go with us.
That's to your credit. Yeah.
Well, but do you think I really would have wanted her to go with them? For Colley and Miss Morgan, both very smugly, at least I felt that they were being smug. I could not tell you I do not recall what their emotion was at the time. In character, he technically would have seen it, but I don't know, so I'm not going to make a guess either way. It seemed they were quite certain that since no guilt was attributable to them or Mr. Collins, that I believe Miss Colley offered to take her in as a verbena. And also has responded since then to the firm after it was decided that she would go with the order for now. Mads updated the bulletin board to reflect that, saying that she was being taken care of by the order. Colley has already placed a request stating that she wished to get a hold of whoever the girls' caretakers were. I thought perhaps that before I went and did such a thing, I should probably have someone else with me.
Well,
and I have no intention of letting her near the girl.
Well, yeah, you could simply not.
I am more concerned that if no one does, given how brash they appear to be acting, they might take matters into their own hands and try to locate her. I would rather not have them knocking down my door. They are more experienced and potent than I am, I believe.
Yeah, we'd hope they wouldn't. We'd hope they wouldn't actually.
This city, would you really make that assumption?
No, I suppose I'd put it storming into a Magi sanctum. No, I wouldn't put it past them.
That's also, for the record, you said you visited with the new Archbishop, the head Inquisitor? I spoke.
Briefly, yeah. Before, this would have been before they announced they were leaving the traditions.
Wait. So you spoke with the High Inquisitor or with Archbishop de San Mantia?
I spoke with the new Archbishop. The Inquisitor was on his way out as I arrived.
The new Archbishop is the High Inquisitor.
Oh, as opposed to the Grand Inquisitor.
I do not honestly know if that is a title among their organization.
Okay.
It sounds right.
I
know that the man that nearly broke my hand in Agrabah Nights is an Inquisitor, and that the man who is his direct superior is a High Inquisitor, and he is now the Archbishop.
Okay. The man we met in Agrabah Nights was on his way out. I spoke with his superior, the new Archbishop, who is of their group, but he's not. He made it clear he's not actually a Templar himself.
He is of the Canticle, then, as they now call themselves?
That wasn't a thing at the time when I met him.
But, so then he would have identified as a chorister?
Yes, by influence.
Then he did not seem insane when we spoke, but I do not know what his involvement is with this interior purge they were having. That is a matter which the Order apparently does not want to get involved in, which that disturbs me slightly, but I can understand us having other things on our minds, end of the world and all.
I can well imagine not wanting to publicly, in a showy way, get involved in an internal affair. That doesn't mean individual people can't help individual people.
That was the idea of the former Archbishop before his faith was shattered by an encounter with the devil and so on and so forth. Yes.
So I had a, I suppose, positive meeting with the new Archbishop.
That's good, for there is something that concerns me. From what I've been led to understand, there may not... I'm not an expert in our history, but there seems to be... Based on the little history I read in my book back there, he points to the one that's like... It's like basic history of the traditions type stuff. Written by Hermetics, of course. There has, at least for some time, been something of a... Not animosity, perhaps, in this day and age, but a minor conflict of interest. At one time, they were the dominant force, and in many ways, the Order is now that force, and they are... They are now close to rivaling the Order in strength, from what I understand.
I don't know.
Thanks to the Templar.
I mean... I think it's fair to say that the Catholic Church does not hold the same sway over Europe that it once did.
No, but they may have the same magical capacity as the Order now.
I have no way to judge their magical capacity as a whole.
Neither do I. This is simply inference based on the fact that they have combined forces with another group. But part of what concerns me is the possibility that even if their interests align, such as I would imagine both of these groups, despite whatever name the chorus may put upon themselves, and despite what atrocities they may be committing to their own or to others, which I'm worried that comes next, but that's a separate issue. Regardless, it should be clear that no matter what name they have, they are the last people you would suspect of infernalism, and they would likely be the first to stand up in defense of the city against it. Likewise, the Order has had apparently many vocal encounters on that topic.
But yes, the Order has had a history where it's found it has suffered from infernalism, but it's purged infernalism with brutal force. It purged itself. Or maybe we're just better at recording it.
Perhaps, but what concerns me is, even though there's obvious aligned interest, if there's not communication between the two, or at least lines of communication, there's every chance that the two forces could come head to head, especially since the chorus is now the canticle and they have disavowed the traditions as a whole. That changes the political landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I believe this is the first time ever that a tradition has left the council. No, the Alabatan left, didn't they? I think.
I do not remember them being mentioned in the history books, but I have been told the history books are rather abbreviated, at least the one I read.
The Virtual Adepts only joined, 50, 60 years, the Second World War.
That makes sense.
Council. Clearly their seat was empty. The seat of correspondence was empty before they turned up.
That makes sense.
I think it may have been held by another group in the early days. But clearly there was a seat that was empty. So
no, I agree with your logic. I'm simply saying that we may want to keep communication open between the two. And if you have a rapport with their leader, and you are in service to D'Onofrio as her apprentice, then simply keep up those connections, I guess, would be a good idea.
Yes.
Simply
I'm not sure how much I don't know me, they don't know them. I mean, these things take time to build. I will see what I can do. They were quite... They mentioned to me there was the Dirney Chantry in the city. The Archbishop both said he thought the Dirney were innocent 1,000 years ago, but was also fully up for purging this chantry.
Which may lead into what you had just said yourself about the possibility that they aren't looking so good now. Yuki seemed quite convinced, and again, though her judgment now seems very questionable, to say the least, she seemed very convinced, as did others, that whatever they saw down there was in this House Daedni was indicative that they were innocent at the time. Whatever has happened since then, and whatever those who have claimed the title have done.
I mean, well, Roy was insistent about it as well, and I don't know. It's 1,000 years ago. It's before the Norman Conquest.
Yes.
Yes, there was a lot of infernalism back then. There probably were a few infernalists. Other houses had them back then. There are many reasons why people disliked them.
Also, apparently, one of the houses that was chiefly responsible for naming them was House Tremere.
Yes.
And that apparently is a different issue, which calls their judgment into question.
He would later renounced for their own reasons sometime later. And before them, there was the infernalism of House Natalis. That's what started it.
Yes, and that house survived.
Well, it was only their senior leadership, not the whole house.
Perhaps it was something similar with Diedny, but
it was, as I believe, after House of Talos was purged, it was decided we needed a proper, fully investigation of the whole order to see how far this rot spreads. And the Diedny, being, shall we say, very British and respecting their privacy, said no to the investigation, which was then used to justify the war, that they refused to open themselves up to investigation.
I don't know as to that. That was not mentioned in Yuki's account, but Yuki's account was necessarily brief.
Yes.
I will say that I would not. It is safe to say that, as you said, it was 1,000 years ago. It is honestly of less import as to whether they were Infernalists and more as to whether the new members of the house are Infernalists. And we don't know as to all of them. For I don't believe Yuki is actually part of that house, though she works with members of it.
Yeah, agreed. She's clearly in their informal cabal.
Yes.
But I mean, this used to be a little. There used to be a bogeyman used to scare young apprentices that one day the Diedny will return to get you if you misbehave. Their leadership was never found. They thought they may have escaped to the fairy, so they could return theoretically.
I can't speak to any of that, but
this is off topic. I am rambling on times.
What I am suggesting at this point is this is the point I was attempting to make earlier. We may want to see if we can find other like-minded magi who agree that this is an issue, who would be willing to work together to try and, I hesitate to use these terms, but find a safe spot, shore up the barricades, and be prepared to weather one hell of a storm, and possibly help put out the fires it causes.
Yes, it seems prudent for young magi with a good head on their shoulders to, form a cabal of light to catch out the cabal of darkness.
I hesitate to use those terms, even though I understand what you are saying, but this would be less about trying to initiate a purge, for hopefully enough attention has already been drawn that other and much more powerful and wiser individuals would do such things, and it would not fall on us, except perhaps to bear witness. But I'm trying to think of any individuals I have met in the city who would seem. I would say Eric. He was very vocal in his dislike of all of these events, the abuse of the child or the children, the issue with the infernalism, all of that. So he might be a good person. I actually gave him a brief pep talk about the order, for he has apparently not joined any faction, and he has a predisposition towards medicine and healing, which I do not know if that's something we specialize in, but I'm sure there's a house for everything from what I have been told.
So he's a doctor, is he? A medical.
Yes, a medical doctor, not a back alley patch or anything. He has his license. There's also one of the other virtual adepts in the city, a man named Kurzweil. He is somewhat excitable, but he seemed to have the correct reaction to all of this. Again, infernalism, that's a bad thing, which again, that's heartening to actually hear the reaction. He is an adept, so he has technological leanings. Actually, somewhat similar to my own. He has some knowledge of cybernetics, whereas I am more into robotics. That is my degree. Let's see. There's also. Do you recall the man Hyun that we worked with in the Leviathan?
Yes.
I believe he proved his loyalty pretty well, and after putting all the pieces together, I do not believe there is any credible chance that he is actually a sleeper agent working for the Union. It is still a mathematical possibility, I suppose, but from all accounts, though we have no chance to interrogate the good doctor now, it seemed that his implants were stolen from an actual Union operative. Whatever his cause of amnesia, he is not, in fact, the agent Bok Choy, or whatever they called him.
And even worst case, he was some kind of sleeper agent. Nothing we are discussing it particularly is opposed to the Union. If we were planning to start raiding Union bases, I would be a lot more wary about him.
But since we are talking about dealing with infernalism, my understanding is even the Union doesn't go for that.
Quite. I mean, they don't go after every mage just for existing. If we keep our heads down and stay out their way, they'll get on with their thing.
That is also a possibility, though.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, admittedly, they do know us as the people that took the Leviathan, so we may well be on their lists.
I would imagine some people definitely are for their actions, especially murdering the doctor. But I would say...
But as you say, he's almost certainly not a sleeper agent. And
yes, which means he is suitable for this
even
purpose.
if he is, we're not going to be discussing plots against the Union in front of him.
Exactly.
So,
at least not until we have an opportunity to verify if he is a sleeper agent or not, which that I don't know if I could take apart his electronics, but I could possibly do so. And I know people who could, if not I.
Well, I mean, I suppose the way to find out would be to have what appears to be a important discussion that the Union should know about in front of him and see if they react to it.
It's also possible, but in the short term, at least, as you said, it would not matter. That is something we could try when we have opportunity. So let's see. Possible people that might help us. This Kurzweil, Hyun, Eric, the woman, Miss Asuka. I encountered her once or twice. She seemed... I believe from what we saw after the end of the Leviathan issue, as we were on our way back to the to Dublin, she slipped into a state of catatonia. Your mic's really acting up, man.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like going staticky. I can hear you now, but it's staticky.
Oh, sorry, nothing's happened. It's brand new mic as well. That's annoying. Okay.
It's just going like eat. It's like it's trying to communicate in Morse code.
Okay.
All right, it's stopped now, I think. Yes, let's see. Hyun, Kurzweil, Eric, and possibly this Asuka, if she recovers from what's going on with her. I do not know. I do not have any skill with medicine or extreme skill with issues of the mind, but I know some others who might be able to assist.
Have some talent with mind, if that would be useful.
It might be to at least look at the issue, but I have not tracked her down since she returned. I have a data pad which is apparently connected to her familiar. I suppose I could ask it to locate her. But I have not attempted to do so yet. All right, so I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I cannot name anyone at this time. Let me think.
That's quite a long list of names already.
For for possible people, I suppose. Let's see. No, that's more or less it. Speaking of which, OC, give me 1 second. Do you have to go, or do you have a little more time?
I'll do a little more time. It's 2 o'clock in the morning now, but go on then.
I was checking to see if Torna is available, because we could always just lump that in here rather than do a separate scene. I don't think it's going to be a long scene. So it could literally just be lumped in at the tail end of this. I'm giving him a moment to respond in the meantime. So, presumably, if we were able to get those people's support, I already know that their temperament is at least aligned with ours for purposes of what we're talking about. Or at least I have reason to hope it is. But hopefully we can get them together and discuss things from there. Find a place to operate out of if all are willing. And then just, as I said, fortify the crap out of it.
Agreed. I mean, ourselves, if we want somewhere which is fortified, there is the main chantry.
True, though we cannot allow any, as I understand it, we could not invite anyone else in there in any lasting capacity. So if we were to fortify a location, we would have to create our own.
I agree, having our own communal working space would be sensible. I would say Sanctum, if we can find a way to make our different paradigms align.
We could always attempt to, well, taking over an existing building leaves trails, I would assume, and those trails could be followed by others. It may be best to consider building an entirely new location underground, though that would require some... It would be a feat of engineering, but fortunately, I am an engineer. I could actually assist with this. I would have to look into it a bit more to see how feasible it is, but hypothetically, if we could work around the existing cabling or redirect it or something else, we could always build something even here beneath my forge. Not directly beneath it, I would hope, but in this plot.
I'll have a think myself and see if what I can come up with on that. There may be, I don't know. We need to pick a location carefully. It merits some thought. I think the first we need to establish a good bell to work together.
Yes, and if we get the people that I mentioned together, that's a good start. By the way, Torna is not available, so we can probably just end the scene whenever you're ready. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we actually need to cover. Let me think. I think that's actually it. I don't think there's any other major events that have occurred. He's listed pretty much everything.
Well, it's pretty major.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to just say they just sit and chat for a bit longer about possibilities and then he heads out?
Yeah, we make small talk. Oh, do you need any assistance with your new ward?
Perhaps at some point. At the moment, it's simply a matter of teaching her how to not blow things up, because she seems to have some difficulty controlling her talents. But that's to be expected. Especially
as you can probably guess, based on who my matter is and my house, I do have some talents at blowing things up. If you need someone with that talent to talk to her about it.
It's quite possible that might be helpful. I still need to find some common ground to at least give her a way to control her abilities, because she does not have the... She does not seem to have any specific tools for controlling it. It simply is for her right now. She is still in a formative state. Hopefully, if we're lucky, she'll be able to work with tools that are conducive for all of us and something we can understand and help her with. I don't think we're going to be able to impress upon her the full. Well, I can't even teach her the hermetic methods, even if I understood them well enough yet, because I'm still learning them myself. She is not technically an apprentice of the order. She is simply a ward of the order for all intents and purposes. So I can't actually teach her our ways. I would have to teach her something closer to my ways.
But
and
it sounds like that she needs a tool to give her the control, and I would suggest if it's a physical tool that she can put down, and that she grows accustomed to using it, becomes dependent on it, that then he gives the control to not misfire.
I have some ideas that might help with that. I will try and come up with a durable tool.
I know we talked about Veritius, the House of Smiths, before. It is said that their founder was never able to transcend his tools, that he always had to work with casting tools. Perhaps I'd want to inflict a weakness on someone, but right now, getting her to work with a casting wand, one that she can put away when she doesn't want to use it, might be for her own good. And she can transcend that limit when she's older.
Essentially, yes. I think it would be very difficult for her to forget that she has this ability, but it would at least help her repress it slightly or suppress it.
As much as I dislike the comparisons to Harry Potter, I'm assuming being of that age, she's familiar with it.
She's 8 years old. She might have missed that craze.
I was thinking that the idea of using a wand to cast her magic she might actually be quite receptive to.
I'll see what works with her. I need to have a lengthy discussion with her about that. See what her interests are and what makes sense for her. But yes, I will definitely keep that in mind.
No, I'm sure you have more than equipped here to make her a splendid wand.
Yes. I don't have angel feathers or dragon heartstring, but I do have some tass lying around. I could always put it in, make it more durable and harder to destroy.
Sure, we could find some semi-precious stones.
And just throw some glitter on it just for authenticity.
Well, I mean, there's a question of belief there. If you tell her it's made with angel feather and dragon blood and whatever, is that enough?
I would rather not lie to her. But I understand your point, though. I do. I'm not saying anything. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm simply saying it would probably work best if I am direct with her.
I think at her age, most parents would tell her about Father Christmas and the Easter Bunny and so forth.
Yes, but I believe her home life may have been a bit less sheltered.
Yes.
Based on what she said.
But she obviously doesn't seem keen to go back to her uncle.
Nor to school. And if she wishes to avoid her uncle, quite obviously sending her back to the same or even a different school, the only way that could be done without alerting her uncle would be to give her a new identity or to erase her uncle's memory or something along those lines. And that is a very lengthy thing. I'm going to have to do some investigating to find out who her father is, or her uncle.
Well, yes. I mean, it might be possible. It depends how involved he is. It might be possible just to pay him off if he's not particularly interested in her.
The Order has done such things before, as I understand it.
How we used to take a present in the old days. You find the gifted child and acquire them.
And pay the peasants off to go do something else.
Well, I mean, the peasant families are normally quite grateful for a little silver.
Or an enchantment to keep the rats out of the barn or something else.
And to be honest with you, often with gifted children, they've never really fitted in anyway.
Indeed. In any case.
This is awfully old school in some respects.
We'll definitely have to see how it pans out. I'll do a little digging and see what I can find, but I have my hands full at the moment. For now, she's traveling back and forth in a way that he will not notice, even if they are canvassing the streets for her.
Mm.
Which they don't appear to be fair.
No, I mean, I can probably...
I will likely be able to...
On that front, I should be able to. Let me have a... it's not something I would normally deal with, but I can probably...
If you can discreetly find out, that would be helpful,
Well,
but don't endanger yourself.
No, if I can at least find out if she's been reported missing, that would be... or not. That would be useful to know.
Yes, because it would be, I would imagine, in most households, if the child does not return by the end of the night, you're probably already in a panic, and after a day or two, I would imagine, even by this point, in most households, she would already have her face plastered to milk cartons or something similar, as I said. Perhaps not that specific thing here, but you get the idea. In any case... that is OC probably a good point to pause, or
yeah, we can leave it there.
Okay. In that case, thank you players for playing, thank you watchers for watching, and have a good night.